Hey everybody, it's Mo Bunnell, your host here at Real Relationships, Real Revenue, author of the Snowball System, and trainer to over 15,000 deeply technical experts all over the world on sound business development techniques. Hey, here is our fourth episode with Josh Kaufman. Gosh, he's just so good. If you've watched those prior three episodes, I was just learning every second of the way. Josh is the author of Personal MBA. He sold over or close to 1 million copies, I think more than 1 million copies at this point, at the point of taping of Personal MBA. And it is regarded as the best resource to get all high-level business knowledge in one place. It's super easy to read. The chapters are small. He covers hundreds of frameworks and mental models and MBA style kinds of information all in one place. It's just an amazing resource. That's why about 1 million people have bought it. So I'm going to ask, in this episode, I'm going to ask Josh, how do you manage yourself? What things can you do to hack your own habits so that you can focus on the long game, on the important relationship development and opportunity management to grow your book of business and grow your relationships and effectively grow your career? And we'll get to that in a second, but don't forget, if you want advice from us on that exact kind of thing, how to grow your opportunities, your book of business, grow your relationships, and grow your career, just head over to growbigplaybook.com. That's growbigplaybook.com. Sign up for our weekly newsletter, dropped right in your inbox with insights on how you can achieve more as a business developer. So let's get into it. Here's what Josh says about managing ourselves. All right, Josh, I am super excited to have you back. Fourth question for you. We've covered your big idea, how you use that specifically to bring more deals across the goal line, manage your opportunities, so to speak, how to deepen relationships, how to manage relationships, so to speak. You know what's left for the business developer is how they manage themselves. So drop us some more knowledge. I love where you're headed with all this. Give us something from Personal MBA on how somebody can hack their own habits and accomplish more when it comes to business development.
Okay. So here is another brand new concept in the 10th anniversary edition of the Personal MBA, in the Working with Yourself chapter, which I call the necessity of choice. So I think that most of us, this is an implicit thing for sure. Most of us imagine a world sometime in the undefined future where the to-do list is going to be completely done. There will be no more tasks, nothing demanding our attention. Everything that needs to have been done will have been done. And then at that point, we can finally rest and relax and reward ourselves for the wonderful job that we have done. Unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on how you think of it, that is not fundamentally the way the world works. We live in a world of limited time, limited energy, limited attention, and as a consequence of that, limited opportunities to get things done. So if we think of ourselves like, when this is accomplished, when everything is off of my to-do list, then I can finally relax, or then I can finally reward ourselves or reward myself. We're living in a prison of our own making. Like, we can really make ourselves miserable by not having the expectation that we live in a world of trade-offs. And by necessity, we have to make choices. We have to make decisions between competing alternatives. And so I think there's a lot of value in really wrapping our minds fully around that concept. We live in a finite world. We must make choices between competing alternatives. And instead of resisting that, we spend all of that emotional and mental time and energy getting better at making the trade-offs in a way that is likely to lead to the long-term results that we were looking for. And so part of that early on is being very clear about your personal values and priorities. What do you want? Why do you want that? Why is this collection of things more valuable to you than some of the other things that you might want to pursue or have the opportunity to pursue? And then the other is, when it comes down to every productivity technique, every tracking system, the true value of that is just capturing all of the decisions or trade-offs that you might need to make and giving you the opportunity to take a step back and say, okay, of all of the things that are on my plate or that I could be doing, here are the things that I'm going to do because it'll make the biggest difference for me long term. And here are all the things that I am either going to not do, delete, delegate, defer, like not right now, not ever. These are the things that I can safely ignore or not spend my time on because it doesn't lead me in the direction I want to go. I don't remember the source of this particular quote, but it went something along the lines of, it's really terrible to climb a really tall ladder only to realize that when you get to the top, that the ladder's leaning against the wrong wall. And that's the type of situation that we want to avoid, right? Like, we don't want to look back on our career and say like, yeah, I made it to CEO, but look at all of the things that I gave up along the way that now I realize now that they weren't so important to me. So I think thinking about the necessity of choice and being clear, really clear for you about what's important and what's not, it helps get rid of a little bit of existential pressure on ourselves that's not really valuable or not really warranted, right? Like, we're not responsible for fixing reality. We're just responsible for knowing what we want and then doing the things we need to do in order to get us closer to that end result.
So I'm dying to ask this question because I think you're really good at this. I think better than I am. How do you say, so once you've got your priorities, totally agree that having the right priorities that are sort of, for lack of a better word, the game changers, the things where they're really going to move the needle, whatever metaphor we want to use. How do you say no to the other stuff?
I think the best phrase that comes to mind is no is a complete sentence. It's okay to just pass on certain things, or it's okay to say, you know what, like there may be a large group of people who look at what you're doing and say, oh, you have the opportunity to do, this cool, crazy thing. Like, how could you give that up? How could you not value this opportunity in front of you? Like, it's the social ramifications often that are the biggest barriers to us in really like choosing not to go after an opportunity or choosing to say no to something that other people would say yes to. And so there's a certain amount of status consciousness that doesn't serve us. The like, what are other people going to think? How are other people going to think or feel about me if I say no? We have a mutual friend, James Todd, who has a wonderful phrase. Thanks, I'm honored. That doesn't work for me. Or some very, very kind version of I value you and the opportunity you're bringing to me, and yet I cannot do it, and either here's why or just no. So there's a little bit of, the social ramification stuff. There's also just for ourselves. Like, I think, talking about trade-offs earlier, I think a large part of the human psyche is really not cool with that, if that makes sense. Like, there's a lot of psychological research that basically says people will not make a trade-off. They won't make a choice between competing alternatives until the last possible moment, and only if they're forced to. In my early career, I did product development research, and I saw this all the time. Like, you'd bring in a prototype, or you'd bring in a concept, and you'd ask, like, you'd have people in front of you say, and to ask questions, be like, okay, is A, B, C, or D most important? And they'll say like, no, those are all important. Like, I need to have all of those things. And the more of them, the better. How much would you like this to cost? Oh, I would like it to be as close to free as possible. So if you're doing that kind of open-ended research, you learn pretty quickly that humans like want as much as we can get with as little as we can pay. That's pretty natural. But something really curious happens. those same people the same day or the next day will walk into a store and they will buy something that does not have every feature on the face of the earth, is not perfect, and is not free. And they'll be happy with that choice. There will be no problem. And that's because they're making the trade-offs they need to make at the last possible moment when the trade-off is a necessary precondition of things going forward. And so I think, how we can apply this to ourselves is understand that trade-offs need to be made, and we don't need to feel bad about the opportunities that we are giving up or not paying attention to, because that's a necessary part of the process. We are ignoring the things that we value the least in order to enjoy the benefits of the things that we value the most. And the more we can do that and the more consistently we'll do it, the better we'll perform and the happier we'll be.
Josh, I love this. What struck me, and because I've never heard it said quite this way, is we all have unlimited opportunity and we all have limited time. So creating some kind of mechanism to not only realize that, but embrace it and be able to have a mechanism that says, this is a cool idea, not going to do it now because I need to focus on these things, could be really, really powerful, especially in the world of business development where you've got to proactively go out and make things happen. Like, people aren't necessarily calling on you to give that checkbook you mentioned in the other question. Buy all you want. We want everything you got right now. We've got to go out and make things happen proactively. And that means we have to make the right choices. And by default, that means there's a whole bunch of stuff being piled on our plate that aren't as good as some of the things we could do. And we have to be able to shed some of these to do more of the high value things. Any last thoughts to wrap things up?
Yeah, no, just building on that from a business development perspective, that's exactly why we see things like triage and lead scoring and some of the prioritization tools that we use in business development all the time, right? Like, you have a certain amount of inbound prospects or inbound opportunities, but all of those opportunities are not created equal. And so it's one of the things, like, the more information you can collect, the more of a relationship you have in advance, the more you understand the business and the structure, you can start to say, okay, these are the ones that I should do first because they're probably going to lead to a better result. And these are the ones that can wait until later. And these are the types of customers that we don't want to deal with at all. And so, in the same way that we can use that way of thinking for our business development work, we can use the same type of thinking or the same strategic approach to our personal tasks as well. It's just, the lead scoring and the triage looks a little different and is based on different criteria.
I can now see you're doing lead scoring for like who you want to play board games with or something like that at the house.
Yeah, you're always at the top of that list, Mo.
Somebody down the street's 3.3 and they just got kicked out of the game. Josh, it was so fun having you on the show. I'm really excited. I learned so much. In our next episode, which you don't get to be a part of because I'm going to say nice things about you, I'm going to recap the things that I learned the most from our conversation. So I'm real excited about that. Josh, thank you so much. Round of applause from all of us at Big for you joining the show.
Well, thank you so much for having me. It's been really fun. Thanks.
Cool. Hey, it's Mo. That was really good. That was just the entire 4 interviews with Josh are just all so good. And I might have liked that one the best. So if you want more from Josh, head over to joshkaufman.net, JoshKaufman. There's only one F, and it's .net, joshkaufman.net. Sign up for his newsletter. It's fantastic. If you want ours, growbigplaybook.com is where you get that. Weekly insights dropped right into your inbox. Summarizes all of our great gratis complimentary courses, our latest thinking on business development, on how to grow your book of business, your relationships, and your career. Hey, so that's how to get more from either one of us. There's one episode left in the Josh Kaufman series. It's coming next. And it's my personal deep learnings from what I got from Josh. And this was a really good series. So I'm going to grab what I learned the most from talking to Josh and put it into one wrap episode. That's coming in the next one. Make sure you listen to it because I apply what Josh taught us directly to business development, growing our book of business, growing our relationships. And if you do that, growing our career. So that's coming next. Make sure to check it out.